I stood frozen in the center of the cybersecurity team's glass-walled enclave, my tablet clutched against my chest like a shield. 6 faces stared back at me, expressions ranging from barely concealed amusement to open disdain. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Dmitry, the team lead, spun his chair back toward his triple-monitor setup. "Look, Paige," he said without turning around, his fingers already clacking away at his keyboard. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but the customer portal is secure. We ran penetration testing last quarter, but the verification handshake is sending unencrypted." "Unencrypted?" Troy, Dimitri's second in command, snorted. "You're using words you don't understand now." "I understand perfectly," I insisted, stepping forward. "During the 2-factor authentication process, there's a 5-second window where absolutely nothing happens that we haven't accounted for," Dmitry cut in, swiveling back to face me. His eyes traveled from my face down to my pink blouse and back up again. "This is what happens when marketing hires people, because they took a Coursera class on digital basics." Laughter rippled through the room. Heat crawled up my neck as I stood my ground. "I've documented the vulnerability. If someone with even basic packet sniffing tools wanted to..." "Packet sniffing? Seriously?" Dimitri's eyebrows shot up in exaggerated surprise. "You're in marketing, Paige. Stick to your pretty graphics and leave the actual security to professionals." More laughter. Britt, the only woman on the security team, at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, but she said nothing. "This could expose thousands of customer records," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. "Names, addresses, account details, thousands of customers." Troy mimicked my tone, raising his voice to a feminine pitch that sounded nothing like me. "The sky is falling." Dmitry pushed himself up from his chair and walked toward me, stopping close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne. "Listen carefully," he said quietly. "Your job is to make things look pretty for the quarterly reports. My job is to keep this company secure. Stay in your lane and we won't have problems." I stood there, clutching my tablet with white knuckles, humiliation burning through me like acid. 6 years of network security experience before joining marketing, and I was being treated like a child who'd wandered into the wrong classroom. Without another word, I turned and walked away, their laughter following me through the door. I moved through the busy Monday morning office traffic, nodding mechanically at colleagues who greeted me, until I reached my desk in the marketing department. For 10 minutes, I stared at my screen, replaying the conversation. Then I opened my laptop and began typing furiously, creating a simple monitoring program. If the security team wouldn't listen, I'd need evidence. 48 hours later, my prediction came horrifyingly true. The customer service lines exploded with calls about unauthorized account access. The office descended into chaos as executives rushed between departments, demanding answers. Through my window, I watched the security team scrambling, their earlier smugness replaced by panic. The chief technology officer himself, Liam, appeared at my office doorway, tie askew and forehead gleaming with sweat. "How did you know?" he demanded, breathless. "The vulnerability? It's exactly where you said." I looked up calmly and said, "Because I was doing their job while they were busy laughing at me." Hey, if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your comments mean everything to me, so let me know what you think is going to happen next. Now, let's dive deeper into what happened after that moment. My name is Paige Woodley, and until 6 months ago, I hunted network security vulnerabilities for Atlantic Financial Trust. I didn't just understand cybersecurity, I lived it, breathed it, and excelled at it. My specialty was finding the gaps others missed, the tiny windows of vulnerability that appeared during seemingly secure processes. Then came the panic attacks. After finding 3 critical vulnerabilities that could have compromised millions of customer records, the pressure to be perfect became unbearable. When I collapsed during a meeting with the board, my doctor delivered an ultimatum: change my environment or prepare for worse health consequences. So I made the switch to marketing at DataVault Systems, a mid-sized company providing secure customer management solutions to businesses. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd gone from protecting financial data to selling the promise of data protection. But the pace was manageable, the work interesting enough, and my blood pressure returned to normal ranges. Until I noticed something while preparing marketing materials for our newest customer portal update. I'd been recording screen captures for a promotional video, showing how easily customers could access their information. During one of the playbacks, I noticed a brief flicker during the verification process. the kind of flicker that sends chills down a security expert's spine. That night, I stayed late, using basic tools to analyze what was happening in that split-second window. What I found made my heart sink. During the verification handshake, our system was momentarily transmitting customer data without encryption. Names, addresses, account details, everything needed for identity theft. I prepared my findings carefully, creating clear documentation before approaching Dimitri's team. Their response still burned in my memory. After that humiliating dismissal, I built a simple monitoring program that would alert me to unusual traffic patterns targeting our vulnerable gateway. I didn't access company systems. That would be unethical and possibly illegal, but I could passively monitor public-facing traffic for signs someone had discovered what I had. By midnight, my phone lit up with the first alert. Someone was probing the gateway. I barely slept. By morning, the intrusion patterns had intensified. During my commute, I rehearsed how I would approach Liam, the CTO, directly. Security team be damned. But when I arrived, everything seemed normal. The security team lounged in their glass enclosure, sharing coffee and jokes. Had I misunderstood the situation? Then at 9:37 a.m., chaos erupted. Customer service stations lit up simultaneously. The call volume was unprecedented. I watched representatives gesturing frantically for managers. Words like unauthorized access and account changes floated through the open office. The data breach I'd warned about was happening in real time. I closed my office door and pulled up my monitoring program. The attack signatures were clear now. Someone had not only found the vulnerability but was actively exploiting it on a massive scale. My hands trembled as I exported the data to a secure drive. When Liam burst into my office 20 minutes later, I was ready. "They said you knew," he gasped. His normally composed demeanor shattered. "They said you warned them." "I did," I replied, turning my screen toward him. "And I've been tracking the intrusion since it began early this morning." His eyes widened. "You've been tracking?" He stopped, staring at my screen. "Is that live data?" I nodded. "The attackers are using a fairly sophisticated approach, but they're still hitting the same vulnerability I identified. Here," I pointed to a specific traffic pattern. "They're intercepting the verification handshake and capturing the unencrypted data packets." Liam dropped into the chair opposite my desk. "Why didn't security?" "Ask Dimitri," I said, keeping my voice neutral. He found my concerns amusing. Liam's expression darkened. "Show me everything." For the next hour, I walked him through my findings, explaining in plain language how the vulnerability worked and how it was being exploited. I showed him my monitoring system and how it was tracking the attack without interfering with company systems. "We need to move fast," I concluded. "Every minute means more customer data exposed." Liam stood. "I'm calling an emergency executive meeting in 30 minutes. I want you there." "What about Dimitri's team?" "Them too." His expression was grim. "Everyone needs to hear this directly from you." As he left, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "You should have stayed in your lane, Paige." I stared at the message, a chill running through me. Something told me this situation was about to get much more complicated than a simple data breach. 30 minutes later, I sat at the far end of the conference table, watching the room fill with nervous executives. Marketing Director Natalie gave me a confused glance as she took her seat. The CEO, Andre, entered last, his normally confident stride replaced by a hurried walk. "Someone tell me what the hell is happening," he demanded, not bothering to sit. Liam stood. "We have a major security breach in progress. Customer data is being compromised through the verification system in our portal." He gestured toward me. "Paige identified the vulnerability days ago and attempted to alert the security team." All eyes turned to me. Dimitri cleared his throat. "With all due respect, she made vague statements about the portal being insecure. Nothing specific or actionable. I specifically identified the verification handshake vulnerability." I interrupted, my voice steadier than I felt. I explained exactly how customer data was being transmitted unencrypted during the authentication process. "That's not," Dimitri began. "Show them," Liam cut in, nodding toward my laptop. I connected to the projector and pulled up my analysis, walking them through the vulnerability step by step. Then I switched to my monitoring program, showing the real-time intrusion patterns. "This is happening now," I explained, pointing to the screen. "They've been harvesting data since approximately 3 a.m. Based on the traffic patterns, I estimate they've already accessed roughly 17,000 customer records." The room fell silent. "How bad is this?" Andre asked finally, directing his question to Liam. "Bad," Liam replied. Names, addresses, account details, everything needed for identity theft. We're talking about potential lawsuits, regulatory fines, lost business, and all preventable, I added quietly. Andre's gaze snapped to me. Explain. I identified this vulnerability 3 days ago and reported it to the security team. I kept my eyes on Andre, not Dimitri. They dismissed my concerns, told me to stick to marketing. Andre turned to Dimitri. Is this true? Dimitri shifted in his chair. We receive dozens of security concerns weekly, most unfounded. Marketing staff aren't qualified to… Before joining marketing, I interrupted. I spent 6 years as a network security specialist at Atlantic Financial Trust. I was their lead vulnerability researcher for the last 3. Dimitri's face drained of color. That wasn't in your file. It absolutely was, Natalie interjected. That experience was why I hired her, even though she wanted a career change. Andre rubbed his temples. So you're saying our security team ignored a warning from a qualified professional, and now we have thousands of compromised customer records? That's exactly what I'm saying, I confirmed. Andre turned to Liam. Fix this, now. He looked at me. You'll work with Liam directly until this is contained. Finally, he focused on Dimitri. You and I will talk later. As the room emptied, Dimitri brushed past me. This isn't over, he whispered, low enough that only I could hear. I gathered my laptop, trying to ignore the threat, but a knot had formed in my stomach. Walking back to my office, I checked my phone again. 3 more messages from the unknown number. Everyone has secrets page. Even former security experts. How's your health these days? My hand trembled. How did they know about my health issues? I deleted the messages and tried to focus on the crisis at hand. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of technical discussions, emergency patches, and crisis management. By midnight, we had closed the vulnerability and begun the damage assessment. Early estimates suggested over 20,000 customer records had been compromised. Liam and I were the last ones in the office, reviewing the patch implementation. You did good work today, he said, leaning back in his chair. If you hadn't caught this, it would have been much worse. I finished for him. He nodded, studying me. Why did you leave security work? You're clearly talented. I hesitated, then decided on honesty. Health issues. Stress-related. The constant pressure of knowing one mistake could cost millions. And yet here you are, diving back in. Different when it's occasional, not constant, I explained. My phone buzzed with another message. Sleep well. Tomorrow will be interesting. I turned its screen down, hoping Liam hadn't noticed my expression. Something wrong? He asked. Just tired, I lied. I should head home. The parking garage was nearly empty when I reached it. As I approached my car, the hair on my neck stood up. Someone was watching me. I quickened my pace, keys clutched between my fingers. A figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. Troy, I exhaled with relief. You scared me. Sorry, he said, not sounding sorry at all. Long day, huh? What do you want? I asked, keeping distance between us. Just curious why you're trying to destroy Dimitri's career, he said casually. He's got a family, you know. Kids. I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I reported a security vulnerability. After transferring from marketing, convenient timing. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Almost like you planned it. That's ridiculous. Is it? Atlantic Trust had a major breach right before you left. Coincidence? My blood ran cold. That's not. Just saying. People might start asking questions about your past, about why you really left. He shrugged. Might be best for everyone if you backed off. Let Dimitri handle the technical response from here. Are you threatening me? Warning you, as a colleague. He smiled again. Think about it. He walked away, leaving me shaking beside my car. The Atlantic Trust breach had happened 3 weeks after I left. I'd had nothing to do with it. But the timing could look suspicious if someone wanted to frame a narrative. I drove home on autopilot, mind racing. The unknown texts. Troy's threat. This was coordinated. Dimitri wasn't just trying to save face. He was actively working to discredit me. My apartment felt cold and exposed. I checked the locks twice, then sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. If Dimitri was digging into my past, I needed to know exactly what he might find. My employment record was clean. My security clearances at Atlantic had been impeccable. The only potential issue was my medical leave. 2 weeks of absence following my panic attack, documented as medical leave, without specifics. Could they use that somehow? My phone buzzed again. Found the Atlantic Trust incident report. Interesting reading, especially page 17. I froze. Page 17 of the incident report detailed the compromised security protocols I had helped design. The breach hadn't exploited any of my work, but someone who didn't understand the technical details might not see that distinction. They were building a case against me, suggesting I had either been incompetent at Atlantic or, worse, somehow involved in both breaches. I needed allies and evidence. Immediately. Morning came after a sleepless night. I arrived early, heading straight to Natalie's office. "I need to talk to you," I said, closing her door. "I think Dimitri's team is trying to shift blame by discrediting me." Her expression was grave as I explained the texts and Troy's garage confrontation. "That's serious," she said when I finished. "Have you told Liam?" "Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first." "Smart." She leaned forward. "Dimitri and Liam have history. They worked together at their previous company. Liam brought Dimitri on board personally." My heart sank. "So Liam might not be impartial." "He's fair," Natalie countered. "But he's human if it comes down to your word against Dimitri's." She shrugged. "We need more than suspicions. I have the text messages. From an unknown number. Hardly conclusive." She tapped her fingers on her desk. "What we need is proof Dimitri knew about the vulnerability before the breach and chose to ignore it." "My word isn't enough?" "In theory, yes. In practice," she sighed. "Corporate politics are messy. Dimitri's been here 3 years. You've been here 6 months." She was right. I needed concrete evidence, something indisputable that showed Dimitri had been negligent. "I should get to work," I said, standing. "The response team meets in 30 minutes. Be careful," Natalie warned. "Watch what you say and to whom." The response team meeting was tense. Dimitri had positioned himself at the head of the table, clearly attempting to take control of the situation. Liam sat to his right, reviewing reports. "Now that we've contained the immediate threat," Dimitri began, "we need to implement additional security measures and prepare our customer communication strategy." "Shouldn't we discuss how this happened in the first place?" I asked. Several people shifted uncomfortably. Dimitri smiled thinly. "We know how it happened. There was a vulnerability in the verification process that went undetected during our regular security sweeps." "Undetected?" I echoed. "I detected it. I reported it to your team." "You mentioned general concerns," Dimitri countered smoothly. "Nothing specific enough to act on." "That's not." "Paige," Liam interrupted, his tone cautioning. "Let's focus on moving forward. Assigning blame doesn't help our customers." I bit my tongue, feeling the room turn against me. Dimitri was reshaping the narrative, and it was working. The meeting continued with Dimitri outlining response plans as if he'd been leading the effort all along. No mention was made of my contribution or the security team's dismissal of my warning. As we dispersed, Britt, the female security team member, fell into step beside me. "For what it's worth," she whispered, "I remember what you said that day. You were specific about the verification handshake." I glanced at her, surprised. "Would you be willing to say that officially?" Her expression clouded. "I can't. My position. I need this job." "I understand," I said, though disappointment washed through me. "But," she added, even quieter, "check the security team's Slack channel from Monday morning, right after you left. Someone might have had screen recording enabled during the daily stand-up meeting." She quickened her pace, leaving me standing alone in the hallway with a dangerous new possibility. If someone had recorded the stand-up meeting, there might be evidence of Dimitri discussing my warning and dismissing it. But accessing the security team's Slack would be breaking company policy at minimum, potentially illegal at worst. Yet if I didn't find proof soon, Dimitri would completely rewrite history, painting me as an attention-seeking marketing employee who got lucky with a vague warning. Or worse, he might even try to implicate me in the breach itself. As I reached my office, my phone buzzed with another message. "Meeting with HR scheduled for 2 p.m. tomorrow. Topic: your employment status. Choose wisely, Paige." I stared at the screen, realizing the stakes had just gotten much higher. This wasn't just about professional embarrassment anymore. It was about my career, my reputation, and possibly my freedom. I locked my office door and took a deep breath. If I was facing an HR meeting tomorrow, I needed evidence today. My fingers hovered over my keyboard as I considered my options. Direct access to the security team's Slack would be traceable, and exactly what Dimitri might be hoping for. A reckless move that would support his narrative about me. I needed to be smarter than that. Opening my email, I wrote to Liam, copying Andre. "In preparation for tomorrow's executive briefing, I'm compiling a timeline of events related to the breach. Could you please provide any relevant communication logs from the security team regarding customer portal vulnerabilities from last Monday morning? Professional, reasonable, and on record. If Dimitri had purged the Slack channel, my request would document that I had sought the information properly. My phone rang almost immediately. Liam, that's quite a pointed email, he said when I answered. Just being thorough, I replied. Transparency seems important right now. Dimitri says you never specifically mentioned the verification handshake vulnerability to his team. He's lying. I kept my voice calm. I described the exact issue in detail. His entire team heard it. Silence stretched between us. Then, this puts me in a difficult position, Paige. The truth shouldn't be difficult. Another pause. HR wants to meet with you tomorrow. I'm aware. I received a message about it. You, what? How? Confusion colored his voice. That meeting was just scheduled an hour ago, internal to senior management. A chill ran through me. Whoever was sending the messages had access to high-level conversations. That narrowed the possibilities considerably. I think someone's trying to intimidate me, I said carefully. I've been receiving threatening messages since yesterday. Messages? From whom? Unknown number. They know about my health issues at Atlantic Trust. They're referencing internal company discussions. That's concerning. Have you kept these messages? Yes. Forward them to me, please. His tone had shifted. And Paige, don't discuss this with anyone else yet. After sending the messages to Liam, I turned back to my more immediate problem, finding proof before tomorrow's HR meeting. A knock at my door startled me. Britt stood outside, looking nervous. Can we talk? She asked quietly. I let her in, closing the door behind her. I can't access the Slack logs, she said without preamble. Dimitri archived the channel this morning and created a new one. Convenient timing. Very. She glanced at the door. But Troy records all our stand-ups. He reviews them later to catch things he missed. It's his personal quirk. He doesn't trust his memory. Hope flickered. Would he have Monday's recording? Almost certainly. But he'd never give it to you. No, I agreed. But he might have synced it to his cloud storage. Troy isn't exactly security conscious with his personal devices. Britt's eyes widened. You're not suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything illegal, I interrupted. But if his personal cloud account uses the same password as his work systems, how would that help? You still can't access his accounts. I smiled faintly. One of my roles in marketing is managing our company's social media presence, including our Instagram account that Troy follows with his personal account. Understanding dawned on her face. Password reset. Standard practice when an executive forgets their social media password. Nothing unusual about marketing helping with that. She hesitated. This is risky. Less risky than losing my job and possibly facing legal action for a breach I tried to prevent. Britt nodded slowly. His password is probably Troy Rules, followed by the current year. It's what he uses for everything. Thank you. I was never here, she said, slipping out the door. Alone again, I navigated to Instagram's business portal and located Troy's personal account among our followers. The password reset process was simple, and as a business account manager, I had legitimate reason to be there. Minutes later, I had access to Troy's personal email. From there, finding his cloud storage was trivial. The password was exactly as Britt had predicted. His meeting recordings folder contained dozens of files, organized by date. I found Monday's stand-up and downloaded it, my hands trembling slightly. This was crossing a line, but they had crossed it first. The recording began with casual chatter, then shifted to project updates. 12 minutes in, Troy mentioned my visit. Marketing girl stopped by, he said, chuckling. Paige says there's a security problem with the verification handshake. Claims it's sending unencrypted customer data during authentication. Did you check it? Someone asked off camera. Dimitri's voice answered. Waste of time. She's trying to sound smart for brownie points with Natalie. Should we at least look at the authentication process? Britt's voice. If marketing is finding security issues we missed, we should all quit, Dimitri replied. Note it in the minor concerns, log and forget it. We've got actual work to do. I stopped the recording, heart pounding. There it was, proof that Dimitri had heard my specific concern and deliberately ignored it. I copied the file to my secure drive, then carefully erased my tracks in Troy's accounts. Just as I finished, a new message appeared on my phone. Nice try with the email to Liam. Dimitri already explained how you're trying to cover your tracks. HR meeting moved to 9 a.m. Bring your resignation letter. My stomach dropped. Dimitri was moving faster than I expected, trying to force me out before I could defend myself. I needed to act now. I called Natalie, keeping my voice low. Can you meet me somewhere off-site? I have something you need to see. An hour later, we sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office, Natalie watching the recording on my laptop. This is definitive, she said when it finished. But how did you get it? Better you don't know, I replied. The question is, what do we do with it? She considered for a moment. I have an idea, but you'll need to trust me and follow my lead tomorrow. What are you thinking? Andre values one thing above all else, protecting the company. If we approach this right, he'll see Dimitri as the threat, not you. That night, I barely slept, rehearsing what Natalie and I had discussed. By morning, I felt oddly calm, the same focused clarity I'd experienced during critical security incidents at Atlantic Trust. When I arrived at the office, the receptionist directed me straight to the boardroom. Inside waited Andre, Liam, Dimitri, and a woman I recognized as Helen from HR. Good morning, I said, taking a seat across from Dimitri. His smile was smug, confident. Paige, Helen began, serious concerns have been raised about your conduct during this security incident. What concerns specifically? I asked. Dimitri has reported that you made misleading claims about warning the security team. Additionally, there are questions about how you knew to monitor for the specific vulnerability that was exploited. Are you suggesting I was involved in the breach? Dimitri leaned forward. The timing is suspicious. You claim security expertise, identify a vulnerability no one else found, then suddenly we have a breach exactly where you predicted. I nodded thoughtfully. That would be suspicious if I hadn't warned your team in advance, which you didn't, he countered. Not specifically. I described the verification handshake vulnerability in detail. Your entire team heard it. That's not how they remember it. The door opened, and Natalie entered, followed by the company's general counsel, Sharon. Sorry we're late, Natalie said. We had to verify some information. Andre frowned. This is a closed meeting. You'll want to hear this, Sharon said, placing a USB drive on the table. This recording might be relevant. Dimitri's confidence faltered slightly. What recording? Liam connected the drive to his laptop, and the room filled with the sounds of Monday's security stand-up meeting. As the damning exchange played, Dimitri's face drained of color. When it finished, Sharon spoke first. This appears to directly contradict your statement that Miss Woodley didn't specifically mention the vulnerability. Where did you get that? Dimitri demanded, looking at me. It was anonymously provided to legal this morning, Sharon replied before I could speak. Along with these, she slid printouts of the threatening text messages across the table. Cell tower data shows these messages were sent from this building, Sharon continued. The phone number traces to a prepaid device purchased last week. Building security footage shows Troy buying identical phones from a convenience store during his lunch break Monday. Troy, not Dimitri. The realization must have shown on my face. Dimitri didn't know, I said quietly. Did he? Troy had been trying to protect his boss by discrediting me, but he'd acted alone and clumsily. Andre turned to Dimitri. Did you instruct your team to threaten Paige? Absolutely not, Dimitri said, genuine shock in his voice. I had no idea about any messages. But you did deliberately ignore her warning about the vulnerability, Liam stated. That's clear from the recording. Dimitri's shoulders slumped. We get dozens of security concerns weekly. Most are nothing. This one cost us 20,000 compromised customer records, Andre said coldly, and potential lawsuits in the millions. I made a judgment call, Dimitri insisted, based on her role in marketing. Her role before marketing was senior vulnerability researcher at Atlantic Trust. Andre cut in, which was in her file. The room fell silent. Finally, Andre spoke again. Dimitri, you'll work with HR to transition your responsibilities. Troy will be terminated immediately. He turned to me. Paige, I owe you an apology on behalf of the company. What happens now? I asked. Now, Liam said, we need someone who understands both security and how our systems impact customers. Someone who sees vulnerabilities others miss. We're creating a new security oversight position, Andre explained, independent from the existing team, reporting directly to the executive committee. We'd like you to consider taking it. I looked at Dimitri, expecting resentment, but saw only resignation. He knew he'd failed, not because he'd missed the vulnerability, but because his arrogance had prevented him from listening. I'll consider it, I said, on one condition. The security team needs restructuring, not just new leadership. Technical expertise matters, but so does creating an environment where concerns are heard regardless of who raises them. Andre nodded. I think recent events have made that abundantly clear. 3 months later, I sat in my new office, reviewing security protocols with my team, a diverse group including former marketing, customer service, and development staff alongside security specialists. Britt had been promoted to technical lead after declining to follow Dimitri to his new role at a smaller company. The customer data breach had been expensive but survivable. My new security oversight program had already identified and closed 7 additional vulnerabilities. My phone buzzed with a message, not threatening this time, but from Liam. Board loved your presentation. New security budget approved. I smiled. The most satisfying revenge wasn't destroying Dimitri's career or publicly humiliating him. It was building something better from the ruins of his failure, a security system that valued diverse perspectives and actually protected our customers. After all, true security isn't about who's smartest in the room. It's about creating a culture where everyone's insights matter, especially those coming from unexpected places. If you found this story valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about workplace justice and standing up for what's right even when no one believes in you. Have you ever had your expertise dismissed because of your role or department? Share your experiences in the comments below. Remember, sometimes the most powerful response to being underestimated is simply proving your worth through results.